This is episode 7 of Peer to Peer, which is the Unblocked chat show where we discuss with entrepreneurs the businesses and technologies that are shaping the future. And I'm delighted today to be talking about non fungible tokens, or NFTs, which has become a huge phenomenon, hitting the headlines, affecting everybody from Jack Dorsey, whose first tweet has been sold as an NFT, through to Christie's auctioning off the first NFT artworks. And even Paris Hilton, I saw the other day, getting interested in the world of NFTs. So every celebrity, every person on the planet seems to be suddenly interested in something that is a very esoteric thing, and in a way, non-fungible token. It's a strange word. So we're going to be unpacking all of that with Guy. But first of all, I want to welcome Guy and say welcome on the show. So I'd love to just have you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about your entrepreneurial journey and how you got interested in cryptocurrencies and blockchain.
Okay, thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be, especially in this podcast. I think unblocking the blockchain world is very important, since a lot of people are suddenly interested in blockchain technology. And really, it's not that difficult as some may think, and I'm happy to do that. So about myself, I right now have a business that I'm going to talk about shortly. But my journey with blockchain really started back in 2010 when I read a blog post about Bitcoin, which was then, not very discussed, but I guess as much as NFTs are discussed nowadays, it was popping around in different places. And I was curious, which I think is the number one trait to have when you're exploring new technologies. So I read about it more and more, and I suddenly realized the big impact that Bitcoin is going to have on the world. Obviously, I just want to refrain from that and say it didn't have the impact I imagined back then, but it does have a big impact, as we all know, nowadays. And then I started, after doing the army service in Israel, which is mandatory, I started dealing professionally with blockchain again in 2017, 2018, which was, as you know, all the rage back then with the ICOs. Everyone minted tokens and offered them for public sales. So I worked as a business developer on various platforms and startups, and even a crypto hedge fund back then that was trading. And it was a very eye-opening experience to really understand more of the blockchain world in a business setting. So yeah, I was lucky enough to be an early investor in some projects that I thought were good investments back then, and nowadays they really pay off. And even I got paid in Bitcoin for my salary, which was a very novel thing to do back then. Well, and then going back to last year, 2020, I suddenly realized that the NFT market, which I was aware of back when it started in 2017, I realized that it was going to capture a big interest and spark a lot of innovations from various people, which are not solely blockchain people. So the crypto art kind of market and collectibles really started to gain momentum last year, where a lot of crypto art platforms started selling, paintings for thousands and hundreds of thousands and even millions of dollars. And I saw a lot of different people and companies that were previously not too fond of blockchain suddenly get involved. So much like Bitcoin, when a lot of institutional investors dismissed it at first, suddenly they changed their mind, did a 180-degree turn, and started, getting involved in blockchain. Same with the art market. A lot of the notable artists at first dismissed it, and suddenly they get involved. So I think it's a very interesting sign. That's why I decided to ideate and establish Finite, which is my company, which will be the future-proof marketplace for limited edition physical items. So yeah, NFTs, which I will explain what they are very soon. usually deal with digital items, but I don't think they should be dismissed yet from physical items. So some of the issues that come up with those NFTs, I'll discuss them soon, but I'm sure some of you have heard of the IP issues, the sustainability issues, the high gas fees, and not really understanding the value of those digital tokens and what you can do with them. Can they be copied? So this is why we developed a marketplace that only deals with real assets, and therefore you don't have to think of the digital ones that much. You, the physical assets have an inherent value to them. As you know, a painting could be, the value is tied to the painting itself. We developed a multi-chain protocol that can circumnavigate to more sustainable blockchains, but also utilize the Ethereum ecosystem, which is all the rage right now. And we also offer, users on our platform to avoid gas fees and have a secure customer experience when they interact with some of their favorite and most renowned brands. And then what is ultimately very cool about Finite is the fact that after you purchase an item, you can secure the value of this item in the NFT, and then you're free to use it as you please. And you also get a 3D model, which you can use in several metaverses. I'll explain.
That's very,
more
very
about
cool. I mean, we might need to explain to some people listening in what we mean by the metaverse, but we'll come on to that in a bit. So
okay.
It's great to have your introduction, first of all, and obviously to hear we have so much in common, because I also got paid in Bitcoin back in 2014, which was a real novelty at the time. And I think things have evolved a lot, as you say, from a time when Bitcoin was being talked about as going to be the kind of global world currency. I think we've moved on from that to a world where we have many different types of cryptocurrencies and tokens, and people are starting to understand what a token is. And I sort of thought, well, non-fungible token, we're going to have to come up with another name for that, because who's going to understand what a non-fungible token is? But actually NFTs are suddenly, as you say, taken off in the last year. But they have been around for a while. I mean, CryptoKitties is probably the first big kind of application of a non-fungible token that people might be aware of, where you could purchase a digital cat and trade them in a gaming format. And so you could have some kind of rare kitties or rare cats that you own and can trade with people. And that, was controversial at the time, because it more or less sort of slowed down and broke the Ethereum blockchain. Because so many people were wanting to get on the kind of CryptoKitty bandwagon. But since then, a lot's changed and more mainstream awareness have come, I think, of cryptocurrencies. So just explain to us a little bit what is a non-fungible token, and why you think it's suddenly kind of taken off so much more.
Right. So the easiest example really to unblock this concept is what is non-fungibility, right? So when you have a dollar bill or a pound or a shekel or a Bitcoin, you can always trade them for a similar kind of currency, right? My Bitcoin will always be worth your Bitcoin. Non-fungible tokens are really, they point to something that is unique. Therefore, it cannot be exchanged in the same manner. My NFT will not be worth your NFT. And NFTs are being held, as a new technology to really prove authenticity, ownership, history, security, and scarcity, which is the main point here, scarcity to digital items. So they were used at first, like you said correctly, in 2017 by Dapper Labs, which now have the NBA Top Shot project, which we can talk about later. But yeah, to purchase virtual cats, CryptoKitties on the Ethereum network. But since then, they have developed many other use cases, such as virtual real estate, digital art, collectibles, music, movies, and many more, which are already coming to the market. It's really up to the people to innovate using this technology. And that's why I'm so excited about it. So many creative people are joining this trend. And if you want to imagine it, just think of, the painting behind me and having like a paper certificate to it, just in a digital manner, right? It is a digital certificate which points to an existing item, and thus it proves the current owner of the certificate on the blockchain. And yeah, the main difference here really stems from the fact that you are free to move or trade this certificate very quickly and in a decentralized manner. So I could sell things without, yeah. So yeah, crypto art, for example, has been wildly successful. You might have heard of the $69 million sale, for example, of the Beeple artwork. I think it's a really interesting concept to tie it back to the Middle Ages, where wealthy people would be patrons of the art, right? They would support artists through purchasing their art. So up until now, there wasn't really a way to monetize and purchase and secure ownership over digital assets. And this is where true ownership comes in on the blockchain. You can really prove that you own a digital item with this certificate. I think another interesting point related to crypto art is that successful artists usually themselves become these patrons, and they help other artists monetize their digital art through the various blockchains. It's really a start of a new ecosystem for content creators to earn, or monetize their content, and also maybe free themselves from jobs they don't really want to do. They could become truly creative people and let their art, flow. So I think the excitement really stems from the fact that nowadays people really start to see where the blockchain world intersects with with personal passions and the real world, right? So it's really reminiscent, I think, of the internet back in the days where people suddenly imagined all those new innovations. And yeah, it did lead to the dot-com boom, but it also led to our chat right now. So I think a lot of beautiful things would come out from the blockchain as the new internet or the Web 3.0. And it is true that the blockchain world, as of now, as of today, 21st of April 21, the blockchain world is complicated with some, very specific use cases for personal people. So when we imagine the Bitcoin, as a payment system where we could pay each other, and it's really not a payment system right now, the blockchain world remains a bit blocked. But as new solutions, such as the one I'm building myself, come along, I really try to unblock the blockchain and put it, in the back end, so people wouldn't have to interact with it in arduous ways, such as the MetaMask wallet. And as, of course, other people, such as myself, will come along, and new innovations will flourish, and the adoption rate for blockchain will boom, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's something I've talked about a lot in events and interviews over the years, is the fact we kind of need to get to the point where it's user friendly, it's visually attractive. People don't need to know it's a blockchain. They just need to be able to do something that adds greater value than what they could do before. And if they can do that, then people will immediately get behind blockchain without having to, listen to a blockchain 101 technical seminar. They'll just know what to do because it'll be easy and user friendly in an app or on a desktop application. So I think, as you say, a huge amount of creativity is being unleashed. We had an event, actually, maybe we were a bit too early, back in 2017, called Creatives Unblocked, where we started talking about blockchain for the creative industries and how we could help content creators monetize their work, whether they were writers or artists or musicians or other forms of creativity. I heard of a recent application for street artists in Brazil to be able to create NFTs of their performances and things like that. So helping potentially some of the poorest people in the world who may actually have great talent, but they're not getting an income from it and they're not getting known. But this is one way that they could, generate much more income and really improve their lives.
Absolutely. So, and when new innovations come along, which allow them, to purchase cryptocurrencies easily, for example, right? And really use them to mint those NFTs, or even minting without any fees, like what I'm trying to do. That would surely help a lot of people around the world to monetize their items and their content. And,
definitely. So tell us a bit about the kind of marketplace that you think will be created with NFTs when we talk about kind of art and collectibles.
Right. So yeah, and I think it already kind of did. The marketplace was created for digital art and collectibles. So the statistics I think right now point to over several billions of US dollars in crypto art and collectibles sold to date, which I think is amazing. Yeah, of course, there are some issues behind there where we can leave that out for now, because also in the traditional art and collectible market, there are problems as well. But yeah, new financial innovations, such as trading the value through digital certificates, is the kind of innovation that I think will spring. Whereas smart contracts and secondary sale commissions, I'll explain what I mean by that, um, and partial ownership mechanisms and crypto payments are also bound to, be rejuvenated and create a new type of marketplace. So by smart contracts, let's imagine a scenario where an artist sold at Christie's or Sotheby's or another auction house. He sold his artwork, painting like the one behind me, for $1 million. The new buyer then takes this painting, which is worth $1 million, and resells it on Christie's. Um, Unless there is a government regulation about it, the artist will never see any commission from the resale, which is something that could and is easily solved by smart contracts on the blockchain. Partial ownership mechanisms is again a concept which I think a lot of people already know from timeshare. So several people could own a piece of art, for example, which is actually displayed in a museum. So they could go to the museum and say, "Oh, I own a part of this painting." I think that could be really cool, and it, in my opinion, is bound to happen. Um, so yeah, if let's take this painting in the museum, right? If the owner would like to sell that painting, he would have to remove it from the museum, then contact an auction house, facilitate a sale, sign all the legal agreements, ship it to the new owner. This is a very arduous process in logistics, and the resale, like I mentioned, could not really be given to the original artist and could potentially harm the painting, via shipments. So if this item was sold on a platform like Finite, the new owner wouldn't have to move it unless he wishes to, and could possibly explore, new financial structures where multiple owners have rights over the painting, maybe through a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization, which is also like a headline, but meaning the governance over decisions, with items and so on could be delegated to a community, basically. That's what I mean over a DAO. So there is a community behind the Mona Lisa, for example, and they could decide decisions. It's a bit hard to imagine right now, but I'm sure those kind of marketplaces and communities will spring. Um, the sale could also very happy. The sale would be very fast, like I said, and crypto payments should be an option for those who wish to do them. And not to mention that the new owner would procure a fully immersive 3D model, which could be displayed at their own digital museum along with the physical one, meaning that's what I meant by the metaverse before. So as we know right now, several digital platforms and museums and galleries and shops are now starting to gain traction. I don't see it very soon, meaning I don't think it's going to be happening at large this year, but maybe in the next year, where people would, shop through an AR experience, for example. So I just want to tell a quick story about myself. I was lucky to be beta tester with the Google Glass back in 2013, which was this, kind of glass that it had like a little prism here, and you could really see a screen on the glass. So, when I touched this product, I said, wow, that would be, a very cool product that everyone would have, I don't know, next year maybe, right? And still we don't see it. I think the market wasn't ready for it, but it definitely will be an option, I guess, sometime soon, since companies have been invested in it for years now. But yeah, as new AR technologies come along, new VR technologies, I have the Quest Quest 2, for example, by Facebook. And I was in a digital museum. So imagine being in this virtual environment where all the paintings around you are non-fungible tokens, and you can just buy them simply as easily as a payment.
Yeah, it's an incredible concept. I mean, I think people have maybe got a bit more used to it since the coronavirus pandemic, because people started to explore, well, I can't go to a physical museum, but I can maybe, join in a virtual tour of the Tate, or, the Uffizi, or my favorite gallery that I can't travel and visit. And so the idea is kind of gradually getting to people. And obviously those that are the early adopters of cryptocurrency will already understand kind of how this could be connected into other technologies. So it's not just blockchain tokens, but also, as you say, linking up with augmented reality, virtual reality, and so on. So really, really interesting. I've got a question for you from Kari Serja, who's asking, how do the IPR rights go with NFTs? Is it not just a piece of code, not real art itself? So I think it's a she or he, I'm not sure, wanting to understand, is it code, or is it a sort of stamp or a contract rather than a piece of art itself?
Right. This is a very, very good question, and it has been discussed for the past 6 months heavily. And so the rights to the item that you buy are always in the terms of conditions wherever you buy it on a marketplace. If you secure it privately, peer-to-peer, and in any way, by the way, in those two scenarios, you would always have to sign a legal agreement with the seller, defining the legal rights regardless. And I'll tell you why. Because NFTs right now are under-regulated, much like cryptocurrencies were back in the day, which now they are being regulated. For example, here in Switzerland, where I am, they already have regulations tied to them in different categories, right? They have the category of a utility token, a security token, a cryptocurrency. NFTs are yet to be defined because they are a relatively new innovation. So I suggest for any buyer to really look at the terms of conditions. I know it's not that fun to do it, but most likely you do not buy the IP rights attached to the digital item as of now.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's been some debate about this, about, for example, artists who create for big brands like Marvel Comics and so on. Is the artist the one who benefits, or is it the actual corporation that owns the brand? And there are complications in, as you say, looking into what lies behind your ownership of this piece of technology.
Exactly. And really talented lawyers are working on this right now, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I think lawyers have been quite quiet on this, actually, because they're not quite sure exactly what they want to say just yet. Exactly. We'll wait and see. But I wanted to come back to the auction houses, because we talked a bit, obviously Christie's kind of launched in with the Beeple sale, but how do you think these kind of quite traditional conservative organizations are feeling when it comes to NFT? Are they sort of ready to embrace it, or is it still something that's a little bit out there for them?
Right. So yeah, as you mentioned, we can see recent strides from all the main 3 auction houses.
I think Philips just launched something as well. I saw on their website.
True, exactly. Yeah. So Christie's, Sotheby's, Philips, and even smaller auction houses are, they're dipping their toes into the water. I think they're trying to kind of understand this is a very new thing for them, but they are definitely talking about embracing blockchain technology as a whole to really facilitate their auctions. In my opinion, they kind of lack, the market sense for people like us that have been around for a while. They really have a more broad perspective and the technical capabilities to really perform auctions in that way. But they could indeed purchase a platform which facilitates these kinds of auctions. In my opinion, that's a very plausible and probable step for them to take. I just want to mention a piece of news from this morning. So, like I said, with back in Bitcoin and all of that, where institutional investors were very wary and kind of dismissive of Bitcoin, and now we see them slowly getting into it. Much like that, the fashion brands were really hesitant to use blockchain, because blockchain has several, I'd say, negative connotations to it because of some scammers that, are everywhere, not only in blockchain. But anyway, fashion brands today, Louis Vuitton, was it? I forgot. At least four other, major names signed a consortium agreement with Consensus. So basically, they are going to have their own blockchain, which secures, the whole supply chain via NFTs, which I think is a huge step for not only the auction world, but also the art, collectibles, and fashion world at large.
Sure. I think my next question dovetails in with another question from Kari. He was asking, how do you see the NFT space versus traditional art scene? So you've got OpenSea and lots of major NFT markets starting up now, but how will they sort of compete against the old-fashioned art galleries, not just auction houses?
Yeah, very good questions, Carrie. So I think there needs to be a bit of a divide between them. So OpenSea, for example, only deals with, largely deals with digital items as of now. When we look into the future, I definitely see the auction platforms and the marketplaces for physical art competing heavily with old and traditional models such as Christie's. I think it would be a slow change. A change of power is always slow to really occur. And it also heavily depends on the traditional people and how soon will they be to procure, understand, and really deal with this competition, because it is a heavy competition. So if I imagine a scenario where a big traditional artist really signs up with one of those platforms or my platform, it really poses a threat to a lot of galleries and auction houses. I think in the end, the artists will do what they think is the best course of action for them, right? So where the market is, what are their rights and royalties that they get from the sales. So it's really up to us, to the platforms, right, to really offer good terms for the artists and make it, a good business proposition and really help the artists do their art, basically.
Sure. And in terms of Finite Limited itself, so what stage are you at with building the business, and what are your plans for the next year?
Right. This year has been very interesting from the market and then from our platform specifically. So we're gearing up for a launch by the end of June, whereas we already have the full backend protocol in place, which is working right now, and we're looking to test it with clients. The backend protocol is basically, like I said, a multi-chain protocol where you don't have to subscribe to one blockchain, for example, OpenSea Ethereum or Binance Smart Chain, but you could use all of them together in tandem. This is what we already finished as to now, and 2021 is going to be obviously the biggest year for Finite, but also for the blockchain industry, I think, where a lot of those traditional brands and companies will seek the advice of blockchain professionals. I think once we launch, there will be a variety of exclusive items that we already managed to procure. They will be up for auction. And the process, will be fun and exciting, both for the buyers, the fans, and the sellers themselves. And after the launch, we plan to implement a fully compliant trading platform where people from all over the world will be invited to auction their items after, obviously, a thorough authentication process, which will happen offline. But I invite, everyone that is interested in this concept of the future marketplace and auction house really to give me some ideas. I always like hearing people's ideas about it, and look to innovate together in an ecosystem.
Well, we'll really look forward to seeing how you get on, and hopefully I'm going to be coming to your platform and doing some trading myself and purchasing some NFTs, which will be really exciting and fun. And just before we come to the end, I just always ask everybody, especially over the last year when we've all been struggling for inspiration and being at home a lot more, what ideas and books and people are inspiring you at the moment to stay positive and keep going with what you do?
Actually, COVID is very inspiring, I think, actually, for people, because they have more time to listen to, digital. Digital is basically the connection of physical to digital. And there is so much to co-create here, the intersection between a physical item and a digital twin or a digital model, and how do they work together. Another concept which I really like is Metcalfe's law. For those of you who know Moore's law, it's a bit similar, but Metcalfe's law really states that networks grow exponentially in a squared manner proportionate to the amount of users. So breaking this down to a more easy term, Metcalfe's law says that as more people join a network, basically the adoption rate grows in a proportionate manner. This was stated for telephones, and we all have, a cell phone nowadays. And I think blockchain is the next field to be affected by this law. Whereas more people will adopt blockchain, the adoption rate will increase. For blockchain, and NFTs are the northern star for this kind of shift, in my opinion. And The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell is a book I read, which I really like. It explores systems and how they change rapidly due to one change. So there is a trend, one small change, a tipping point. And again, I think NFTs are a good tipping point for the blockchain kind of world at large. Then there are several other books which I like. The Future is Faster Than You Think, by Peter Diamandis, was a really good book recently. Lifespan by Dr. David Sinclair, On Intelligence by Jeff Hawkins, every book by Ray Kurzweil I like, and many other futurist books, articles, and forecasts.
I feel like we need to start up the Unblocked book club now. It seems like we've got so much inspiration. So thank you so much for that. Can you just, before we close, remind everybody how they can get in touch with you through the website or social media?
Yeah, definitely. I'm Guy Bahat on LinkedIn. That's the best way to reach me. And then when you search Finite.ltd is our website. Right now, the white paper is live. If you're interested to look at that. Yeah, that's the best way to reach me.
Well, thanks so much, Guy, for being on the show. It's been fascinating to hear your take on NFTs and how they're changing the future of not just the art world, but maybe even what our concept of art is itself. We're going to be talking on the next episode, episode 8, with Andrew Antar, who's the co-founder of Tune FM, and we're going to be talking about music on the blockchain. So related issue, Tune FM is a kind of decentralized Spotify, and they're also going to be having the facility to mint NFTs on their platform for musicians and musical artists. So thanks so much to everyone for being here, and we look forward to seeing you on the next show of Peer to Peer.